Hello and how's it going, everyone? It is Skullzi here with the latest gaming news, rumors, and speculation. It seems like Todd Howard wasn't quite satisfied with all the information he gave us during that Starfield Direct showcase, because he just gave us a whole lot more. A lot of information that was not at the Starfield Direct showcase, including some information that answers some of the biggest questions the community has had about Starfield since this game was officially announced. In today's video, I'll be breaking down this entire interview for you, and there is a lot of information here. This is super exciting to finally be getting a lot of Starfield information in such a short period of time. The Starfield marketing is fully assuming direct control, but nonetheless, let's not waste any more time and get right into today's content. First of all, the source of this Todd Howard interview is the Kinda Funny Xbox podcast, rather the Xcast, episode 143, and Paris and Todd Howard were both on a show, and it was an amazing time. A lot of fun to watch this and see Todd Howard be so passionate and as excited about Starfield as we are. So the hype isn't just in the community, the hype is also within the Bethesda developers, and that is just an awesome thing to see. It's just great to have a moment where everybody is hyped. Even Bethesda haters have to admit Starfield looks good, but that's a topic for another video. In today's video, like I said, I'll be breaking down all of the new Starfield information from this interview. It's going to be organized in a somewhat, like, the best way I can do it, because this interview did jump topics from time to time, so I took all this information, organized it into a list of similar categories, so as we move down the list, things should more or less be grouped together with similar things. But nonetheless, let's begin with one of the biggest answers the community needed to hear about Starfield, because ever since we saw the Starfield concept art with rovers and stuff, like this concept art and other concept art, ever since we saw mechs and the gameplay in the background and other vehicles, ground vehicles, the community has been wondering if we, as the player, can control a ground vehicle, and Todd Howard has finally answered that. No, we cannot. Not only can we not drive around in a rover or a ground vehicle, we can't ride an animal either. Now, I don't know where the animal mount thing came from personally. I haven't heard anyone in the community question if we could ride animals or not, but I guess when people heard of the Ashta, the wolf-like velociraptors, apparently some people immediately wanted to ride one. That's just humanity. I guess that's just how it goes, but no, you won't be riding animals or driving vehicles on the ground, and I wonder if this also carries over to planets with a lot of water on them, meaning I wonder if now we also can't drive boats, because if we can't drive vehicles, I would imagine then we can't also pilot boats, which is a little bit of a buzzkill, because Neon is a planet that's mostly all completely water, and there are boats visible in the concept art and stuff, but I mean, I guess vehicles were visible in the concept art, rovers and ground vehicles, but we won't be able to use those either. But nonetheless, this finally confirms we will not be using ground vehicles, so modders, get to work before the game comes out to make sure that we can use ground vehicles at some point as soon as possible. Yes, this kind of sucks, but really, it's not that surprising. We're going to get a fully robust spaceship system, and that's going to take the majority of the gameplay anyway. I'm sure there's gameplay-related reasons in terms of the gameplay loop that Bethesda didn't want to include ground vehicles, but nonetheless, we can't do it. Moving on. The next thing I want to say is that 10% of planets in Starfield have life on them, as confirmed by Todd Howard. And I actually like this, because No Man's Sky is a fun game, but literally almost every single planet you land on, or at least 80 to 90% of them, have plant and wildlife, and that's just not that realistic. It takes away from the wonder and the awe in discovery when you finally discover alien life, and in real life, life is very, very, very rare, as I'm sure you know. Obviously, it's going to be gamified a bit for Starfield. There's going to be a lot more alien life than there is in real life, but nonetheless, only 10% of the 1,000 plus planets will have a form of life on them. I like that. That makes it to where when you discover these places, it's a lot more interesting and unique, so that's pretty awesome. And another thing this means is we probably won't get No Man's Skyification with creatures just looking like somebody took a Mr. Potato Head clay ball thing and just randomly put parts on it. The life should look better and make a lot more sense biologically, with only 10% of the planets having life, so that's another good thing. Next up, some planets will only have one biome stretching over the entire planet. However, some planets have a lot of biomes stretching over the entire planet. So this confirms that, yeah, some planets won't just be all one biome. There will be planets with several different biomes on them, and obviously this is probably tied to what type of planet it is. There's no doubt going to be a lot of just barren, rocky planets, and these barren, rocky planets will probably all have one biome, which is barren and rocky. But the planets that have better atmosphere or more unique geography and stuff will no doubt have a varying degree of biomes as well. And this is cool too, because when you discover a planet that has unique biomes, it's going to make it even more interesting also, because we got to remember, this is not just a simulation, this is also a game, but at the same time this is still a game that's trying to be realistic. So several planets will be empty and only exist for the sole purpose of resource gathering, but nonetheless, I like the balance here. I like that the rare, unique, cool stuff isn't as common, and because that's exactly what makes it rare, unique, and cool. The next thing, there is no fishing in Starfield. Apparently this was a question that needed to be asked. I mean, I guess it makes sense because they recently added Skyrim to the 30th edition of Skyrim that they released with the DLC and stuff, and fishing in games seems to be a topic that's always brought up. I know a lot of MMOs have it and stuff, and I like fishing in a game. It's fun to just take a few minutes, have a cup of coffee, relax, and fish. But nope, you won't be fishing in Starfield, at least not with a fishing pole, because Todd Howard did say you can pick up and kill fish, so you can still go fishing, you just will have to use a weapon or something, or just find dead ones. But while this confirms there won't be fishing, it also confirms to me that there is going to be a certain amount of underwater content, because right here, this confirms underwater creatures, so hopefully it's more than just slaughterfish and mud crabs. Next up, depending on the planet we're landing on and choosing to explore, we'll have to prepare accordingly, so we'll have to look for any crazy weather rolling in or other changes to the planet's surface that we're on. So this basically means that some planets can be volatile, the weather can change, temperatures can drop, and you'll have to be prepared for that kind of thing. So if you're going to explore a planet that isn't peaceful and sunny and warm, you'll want to have all sorts of preparations in place so you don't get caught by the Terminator, the day and night line moving across you, and the planet may be warm during the day but extremely cold at night, which could be a problem. There might be an acid rain storm, there might be sandstorms. There's a lot of things we'll have to prepare for outside of just the type of atmosphere and toxic or other hazardous things that are on the surface. So there's going to be a lot of preparation involved, and this is pretty cool. We can't just use one statistic like sodium or something to keep us alive, like No Man's Sky. We'll actually have to prepare accordingly. And another cool thing, fully surveying and exploring the planet and the system will give you a lot of money. A lot of money. So for those explorers out there that like to check things off of boxes, this is good. This is one of the more fun aspects of No Man's Sky. I'm a completionist. I like to check things off of lists, so you can do that in Starfield. And another thing this confirms is exploration can be a actual way of earning money and living in this world, because if you can earn a lot of money by completely surveying planets and exploring every planet in the system, then no doubt you can sell that scanned, collected data for credits. So that's really awesome to see that in the game. We've seen that in Elite Dangerous and No Man's Sky and stuff, so it's not a new mechanic, but it's good that it is in the game. Next up, you can explore and walk around the inside of your ship, ships you land on, space stations, and etc. I mean, this isn't necessarily completely new news, but this means that if you see a space station out there, you'll be able to explore it. There aren't just buildings that exist for no purpose, or at least space structures that exist for no purpose. You'll be able to explore them. Every ship you see, you can board it. It has an interior, so that's pretty awesome. So that means every ship you're fighting out there literally has an interior with people running around it and doing stuff on. So I just wanted to mention that because I felt like it was pretty cool. Next up, you can assign companions to ships you're not using or dismiss them completely, and this makes me think that you can actually have a fleet with your companions piloting other ships and going out and exploring space with you. For pirate players, this would be awesome because this means you can have a handful of fighters, assign your more nefarious companions to pilot your fighters, and then you and your companions can go 5 ships deep, with a pirate wing of fighters and just jack ships and pirate stuff. The potential of differing gameplay loops in Starfield is insane, but this basically confirms, in my opinion, that you can assign your companions to ships and have them fly with you and kinda have a fleet, or a wing of sorts. I am super excited. Next up, this is an interesting one. There are confirmed to be 4 main romanceable companions who are all part of the Constellation crew, and these 4 main romanceable Constellation companions have pretty in-depth dialogue and quest lines. Now, I don't know if that just means there's only 4 romanceable companions, or if that just means that these 4 are the best ones with the most content. I'm leaning more towards the second thing. I'm pretty sure that there's more romanceable people out there. It's just if you want a lot of in-depth dialogue and quest chains related to your romance, the 4 Constellation companions are the one you can go with. This surprises me because I would almost assume there'd have to be romanceable companions with in-depth dialogue and quest chains with other factions, right? Like, isn't there... What about a pirate option? What about pirate romance or Freestar Collective or something? I don't necessarily think this statement is exactly what it seems to be. I just think that there's, in terms of Constellation, there's 4 romanceable ones. I'm pretty sure there's more people out there you can romance that have a lot of dialogue and quest chains outside of Constellation, and probably a handful of less important NPCs with not much content that you can choose to romance as well. Next up, well, on the topic of romance, there are multiple robot companions. You technically could have an entire ship crewed with just robots, but Todd apparently didn't want to oversell this fact. I don't know what he means by that. Maybe the robot crafting system is really in-depth as well. That's one system we haven't seen before. I mean, we're somewhat familiar with Bethesda robot crafting from Fallout 4, Autonatron, whatever, DLC, but we haven't seen the system in Starfield yet. If it's anything as in-depth as the settlement and spaceship system, then that's really awesome. So that's another system we haven't seen. There's probably a huge percentage of this game we haven't seen yet. We've probably only seen about 15 to 20% of it so far, so robot crafting is probably just as in-depth as everything else, and we can have an entire army and crew of robots. Next up, this answers another question a lot of people in the community have had about Starfield for a while. In previous Bethesda games, primarily Fallout, there are a wide variety of radio stations that both give the player music to listen to, that's lore-friendly, and at the same time news about the world and the player's activities. Apparently that's going to be in Starfield too, but in a very small degree, because there is a radio station, but it's only in one location. Now, in my opinion, this is a negative. I would have liked to have seen at least one radio station per faction, because we could have had a radio station at New Atlantis, the Freestar Collective, and then Pirate Radio. This was a missed opportunity for Bethesda to have space, pirate radio, and to have a radio station that pretty much is rebellious and goes against the system and talks crap about the other factions. But no, we just get one radio station. It's probably a news station based out of the United Colonies, if I had to guess. So that is a buzzkill, but at least we get one radio station, because the world would have felt really empty without one. It's the future. I mean, we have a billion radio stations now in modern day, and TV stations and podcasts, so you would think that that would exist in the future, right? And I guess it does in Starfield, but we only get to listen to one of them. But anyway, the modders will definitely fill this up. Heck, maybe I'll make a Skullzi radio station or something for the pirates myself. Next up, the Outpost and shipbuilding systems are very, very deep and complex. They're intended for late game though, because they require a lot of credits, resources, and even specific player skills. Now that's awesome. I love that these systems aren't just tacked on to the game and just kind of added on without thought. They are very, very deep, so if you do choose to use them and you want to get really deep in these systems, you can. That's amazing. It's a little bit of a buzzkill that I'll have to wait late game to do this, because one of the first things I wanted to do in the game was build a base, but I totally understand. Building a base on a alien planet would no doubt be expensive and require a lot of logistics and resources, so it makes sense that it's late game. And to be honest, I like this because I prefer it to have a lot of costs associated with it. I don't want building bases and ships to be cheap and meaningless, because otherwise it would just feel kind of too easy, you know what I mean? I want to work for the cool stuff, and I'm glad Bethesda's making me do that. Next up, you can connect outposts between planets with your ships and your crews. So basically, if you have multiple outposts that do different things on different planets, you can assign a crew and companions to ships and then have them specifically move product from planet to planet. So if you have one planet that's mining like metals, you can then have some of your companions or NPCs, your crew people, fly a ship from that planet, pick up the metals, take it to another outpost you have on another planet that processes those metals into ingots and stuff. So you can really set up an economy with the outpost system and get rich and produce a lot of mats that you can then use to upgrade your ships and build more outposts. So again, very, very deep system. This is something that has existed in Fallout 4 because you can assign caravans between your settlements, but that system wasn't really in-depth. It seems like it's a lot more in-depth with Starfield, and that is hype. But yeah, ultimately your outposts can be huge resource and economy generators, but it's going to cost you a lot to build these places up. Next up, any ships you steal from your piracy or whatever else you do to steal the ship, all stolen ships are fully customizable and upgradable, which is awesome because I was worried that the stolen ships you take would just like be temporary, right? Like you can keep them, but they would have a significant downgrade because you didn't spend the money on the ship. And this would be the game's way of trying to put some kind of player balance in place to keep you from just stealing super expensive ships by forcing you to basically get a less cool version of it if you didn't buy for it. But nope, you can totally upgrade your ships. Ships will have different levels of upgrade, so if you see one make and model of a ship, it could have different weaponry than another one you encounter, and at the same time, if you steal a ship and you want it to be legit, you have to register it. So I don't know if you have to bribe somebody or something, or if you run the risk of getting caught if you try to register too many stolen ships. But either way, it's cool that that system is in place and that you actually have to go and register your stolen ship. Otherwise, it would just kind of feel detached from reality if you're just flying around in an expensive stolen ship that isn't registered, right? It would make it less immersive. So I'm glad Bethesda is thinking of everything here, and hopefully that thinking of everything aspect is something that carries over to the rest of the game, because it so far seems like it is. Next up, all the ships in game, every ship you see in the game is built with the in-game ship building mechanic. So the very same user interface and mechanic that you use to build and design your own ships is what Bethesda did to create every other ship in the game. So if you see a ship in game, you can literally make an exact replica of that ship. And this is cool. But one thing that it does make me think about is there are capital ships in Starfield. So does that mean that we can also build capital ships? Because based on this statement, that's what that means. If we see a ship in game, we can build that ship, and it was built in using the Starfield ship creator tool that the players use. So with that statement, that means that the capital ships we see in game should very well follow the same logic. Now, I don't know if that's the case. That might just be an oversight with the statement, but if that's the case and we can have capital ships, oh my god, this game just got so much cooler. But nonetheless, moving on to the next thing, Bethesda is very, very happy with how the Creation Engine 2 turned out. They've really pushed the limits with their technology, and this is just the first game they've made with this. We still got the Elder Scrolls 6, Fallout 5, and Starfield 2 down the line, so if the game is this good and they're pleased with the Creation Engine 2 this much on just the first game, imagine how cooler it's going to be later on. And they haven't shown us everything Creation Engine 2 can do, such as a volumetric fog system which interacts with the lighting and everything else. And the physics and gravity changes under the hood are also something they haven't fully shown off yet as well, so there's even a lot of technical stuff in Starfield we haven't seen yet. But it's great that they're pleased with the engine, because one of the major talking points about Bethesda is talking crap about their engine, but I think that a lot of the old memes and hate towards Bethesda is gonna change after this game comes out, including engine stuff. Next up, Todd Howard confirms something we already knew already. Starfield is a modder's paradise, and Bethesda does plan to fully support mods and participate in the modding community. This isn't a surprise. I've been on many podcasts and talked to a lot of people. Everyone is just so excited about Starfield, and then you think about the modding potential. The modding potential with this game is nuts. You got 1,000 planets as blank canvases, all sorts of stuff you can insert into this game. You can insert Mass Effect, Star Wars, your own unique content. The modding capability is nuts, and I just cannot wait for this. Also, Bethesda is equally pleased with how excited the community is about this game. Bethesda is very humbled by the excitement and hype for Starfield, and they just want to continue to fuel that excitement over the next couple of months until the game is released. So that might mean we might get some more Starfield interviews and maybe a couple trailers up until the game comes out. I can almost guarantee you we'll get one more trailer right before the game launches, but it seems like we could get more than that, and seeing how we just got this massive interview, I think that is the case. Next up, Todd confirms that the patches you unlock in the ranking system in-game can be added to your spacesuits, so you can customize your spacesuits to show off your in-game achievements. I love that kind of stuff. I love it. I love the depth and even showing off your achievements on your spacesuits. And when I say achievements, I don't mean like Microsoft Xbox achievements. I mean stuff that you unlock in the in-game ranking system within Starfield itself. So that's really awesome, and I would expect we can also do a similar thing with our spaceships. In Elite Dangerous, you can put logos on your spaceships that show off your different ranking, whether in trading or bounty hunting. There'll probably be a system like that in Starfield too. And last, and this is a curious one, Todd Howard straight up refused to answer any questions about whether or not black holes were in the game. So that basically tells me yes, black holes are in the game, but there's something very secret about it that Todd doesn't want to spoil. Probably some kind of gameplay mechanic. And if black holes are in a game, what other secrets out there to discover in space? But that's everything there is to break down regarding new Starfield information in this interview. Like I said, it was super massive. I'll drop a link to the interview down in the description below. But what I want to know is, what do you think about this interview, and what was your favorite new piece of Starfield information? Let me know down in the comments below. Be sure to like and subscribe to stay in the know when it comes to the latest Starfield news, and huge shout out to the following amazing people for going above and beyond to support the channel and the community. If you want to get a permanent future video shout out, you can support the channel over on Ko-fi, Patreon, or here on YouTube as an exclusive channel member. Links for all this and more are down in the description below. And as always, thank you for watching.
It just works.